Welcome everyone to our latest Next Practices weekly event, if you will. Great to see you all with us again. Some returning names and faces that are with us most weeks. If you haven't already introduced yourself in the chat, please let us know your name, maybe your organization, where you're joining from today. Great to have you here. I saw many U.S. states represented, a few different countries. So once again, welcome all. If you're not familiar with us, we are I4CP, the Institute for Corporate Productivity. We're a human capital research and community firm. We discover the people practices that drive high performance. We define that with four fairly common business metrics, as you see here: revenue growth, market share, profitability, and customer satisfaction. And we use those in all of our quantitative studies across HR domains to really tease out what high-performance companies do far more often than low performers. And we highlight that for our member organizations. You see here just a small sampling of some of the logos of some I4CP member organizations. They range from for-profit, public, private companies, nonprofits, NGOs, government organizations, really large organizations like Amazon, 3M, Microsoft, Visa, and others. We've got a growing cohort of smaller startup unicorn type companies. They also span across all different market verticals, from healthcare to banking to manufacturing, retail, high tech, you name it, and our membership is represented. So a special welcome to anyone on the call who's from a member organization. Great to have you with us today. These Next Practice weekly calls, though, are open to the broader human resources public. So welcome to those who are with non-member organizations. If you'd like to learn more about what membership entails, because there's a lot of growing benefits over the years. I've been with the company 6 years, and we've added a lot to membership just even during that time. Just reach out to me, reach out to Carrie, reach out to anyone on the call today from I4CP, and we'd be happy to help you learn more. My name is Tom Stone. I'm a senior research analyst here at I4CP, and I host most of these Thursday Next Practice weekly sessions. And this week, my co-host is Carrie Bevis, our Managing Director, Communities and Partnerships. Good morning, Carrie. Good to see you.
Good morning, Tom. Glad to be here.
Great to have you. And you're going to be facilitating the conversation with our special guest, who you'll introduce in just a moment. But I wanted to highlight a few of the upcoming events we have in this call series. You see some of the guests coming up. We'll have Ian Wilson, Vice President of HR at Amazon Web Services, coming up on the 7th. And then you see we've got great leaders, Colleen Mitchell from Nordstrom and Michael Keenath from Dick's Sporting Goods on the 14th and 21st. You'll notice there isn't an event next Thursday. We decided to cancel that event on Leap Day on the 29th. We had multiple scheduling conflicts that arose, and so there will not be an event next week. But as you see, we've got things lined up for the 7th, the 14th, and the 21st. We will not have a session on March 28th, as that is when we'll all be gathering in Scottsdale, Arizona, for, as shown here on the bottom left, our Next Practices Now conference, which is March 25th through the 28th. There's still room to register for that event. We don't cap it. It's intended for HR leaders. Most people say it's the best conference they go to in the field each year. So encourage you to still register for that event if you haven't done so yet. And the reason this is relevant today is our special guest today is one of the speakers at that event. So I'm going to turn things over to you, Carrie, to introduce our special guest.
Thank you so much. Please join me, everyone, in welcoming Hortense Le Gentil to our call today. She is an author of the book you see here, The Unlocked Leader, a globally renowned executive leadership coach and speaker. And as you mentioned, we're very excited to host her at our conference this year. Hortense, please help introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your career journey that got you to where you are today.
Thank you for having me, Carrie and Tom. I'm delighted to be here today. So, yeah, so I was, so quickly, very fast, I was born and raised in France. So I know it's very strange. I don't have a French name, but this is who I am. And I took the scenic roads to arrive where I am today, but and I had plenty of lives. So the first one was with horses. So I was a rider, a short jumper rider. So I learned a lot about leadership here. At that time, I didn't get that, but now I can see it, and it was my life. I was very passionate uh, about that. And then I moved to I studied in New York and in no, I studied in Boston and in France, in Paris. I studied marketing, and then I came back to France, and I had I worked for many years in for decades for advertising agencies and communication agencies. I've been also an entrepreneur for a decade in the recycling steel industry. And then I found my calling, and I became an executive leadership coach. This is what I do today. And I coach CEOs and senior executives, and I try to guide them on their journey from being hero leader to being human leader. And this is what I do today.
Thank you. So based on your maybe most recent experience as an executive coach, what made you feel that the world needed the unlocked leader? Why this book?
Why is this book? We all know that the world changed and expectation has changed. So now nobody needs another hero, like Tina Turner said, or a song. We need someone. They need, and they need, and we need someone with who we can connect. What I call a human leader, and then and then we need also to be agile, because there is absolutely no playbook in this. Can we say that the world is crazy? So in this crazy world, we don't have the playbook. We don't have all the answers. That's not possible. So it's not anymore about technical, having all the technique. It's and being goal focused only. It's really the balance and adding to your tools to be these human leaders, and it's a time also to unlearn what we learn, and to learn what we need to learn. And then this is why I wrote this book, because a lot have been said about why we should, lead with empathy, but less about how to do it. Then this book is a guide to how to do it.
And I'm sure a lot of us can relate to the leaders, the bosses in our life that show up trying to save everyone, do it all themselves. But do you believe that everybody has it in them to be able to change, to become a human leader?
Yes, everybody. The only thing is you need courage. The first thing, that is on your way, or in your way, sorry, is really the courage. But, leaders, they are courageous very often, because really it's a journey. It's really, when I said before, unlearn, relearn. It's exciting because you learn a lot, and a lot of things change. But again, you need courage.
And what happens when you become a human leader and you let go of becoming the idealized superhero leader? What's the benefit for the people around them?
You change everything, because if your relationship change with others, so you create an environment where there is trust, empathy, so you change everything. So you change the dynamic, because you create a world when people are seen, valued, understood. And empathy, what is empathy? Empathy means you can put yourself in other shoes, and what it matters. What does that matter? Is because you can understand the person in front of you. So you can do that with a customer. You can do that with your team. You can do that. And if you create a culture, if you are a CEO, a leader of a company, and you can create this culture, the result, you unleash human magic, like Hubert Joly is saying. Yeah, this is the start. This is the beginning. and everybody, knows why they work, and you unlock, the humanity and the good in everyone, and you give everyone permission to be themselves, and you create this environment where you can share, and everyone is very rich because everyone is coming from different horizon, and so different culture, different, even different thoughts, and then taking the time to listen, to understand,
Mm.
you create another dynamic. And when we are talking about the customer, you are able to, if you understand well your customer, if you use this empathy, you are able to understand their needs before them, and the needs that are not yet articulated. And it changed everything. And this is what, Satya Nadella did when he became CEO of Microsoft. He created this, this coach care management approach. And then the magic happened, because it's all about innovation. Because if you understand your customer, if you're an environment of trust, you try things, you listen, you try, you have ideas, and you create, you innovate. And this is what we're talking about. It's innovation. People, never in people, innovation. So we all together, we have the answer. But it's not about one person having the answer. It's not possible.
You are absolutely speaking our language here at I4CP. I understand completely now why we're having you at our conference. So it's about kind of moving away from thinking, how can I be the best? How can I be the best leader? To how can I unlock the potential of my whole workforce, of all of my employees, through this, creating the right culture of trust, a culture of understanding. And I should mention that for those of you who are lucky enough to join us at the conference this year, we will all receive a copy of Hortense's book, The Unlocked Leader. So we'll be able to go deeper then too. But I want to move into some of the language that you use in the book. You talk about mind traps. The first step towards unlocking our leadership potential is identifying our mind traps. So what does that mean?
Okay. So now we begin the process of unlocking ourselves. So you are this leader, and you are this hero leader. You're good. You're successful, and you have to change. So you're courageous enough to face your fears, and then you have to understand where you are stuck, where you are locked. It's what I call the mind traps. So there are. And what it is, it's our mental obstacles that that stand between us, today, and us tomorrow. That is in our way to move forward. That is holding us back. That could be, behavior. That could be, something that we are used to be, and then at one point, at one moment, it doesn't work anymore, and we are here, and we don't understand. And Carrie, we don't understand. And we say, what's going on? So we feel we are stuck, and we feel like, okay, I used to do that. It doesn't work anymore. Why? Okay, but what can I do? You are lost. And then it happened to everyone at any moment in our life. And in somewhere, it's good news. It's because it's time to move. It's time, to change. And it happened to everyone, and it happened to me, 15 years ago. Around something like that, maybe more. No, but in my life, I felt completely stuck in my personal and professional life, and so I was lost. I didn't know what to do. I really didn't do. I did everything by the book, and I felt like I couldn't express myself completely. It was not the place where I should be. I knew, I felt it, but it's hard, when you realize that. And then, of course, everything went south, and I was stuck in bed and sick in bed for months. So I had some time to think, right?
Mhm.
And something wonderful happened at that time. I had a dream, and my grandmother that passed away at that time already, but she came back to in my dream, and she told me, Hortense, you have to find the path of roses. I said, what is that? And where it is? Tell me where it is. I'll follow you. And she just smiled and she just told me, you know where it is. And she just smiled and she disappeared. So I woke up, I was completely furious because, of course, she didn't give me the answer. It sounds obvious for her, but not for me. And I will understand later. This is when I will understand that what she meant was so important. What she meant was that I had to listen to my inner voice, to who really I was. It was time. And not, to talk, to listen to others. And then when I began to do that, I began to free myself.
Mm.
And that's an example of a trap, of when you are trapped. So it's a good news, but you have to do something about it.
Yes, that is so resonant with me. I can also remember the time in my life where I'm like, okay, keeping it bottled up, showing up as the most professional version of myself in every single moment is not working for me anymore. I also remember being visited by a very wise woman in a dream right before I started
Already?
therapy. Yep. And that was the beginning of really looking at myself and, right, what are the obstacles that we're creating for ourselves that are not coming from those around us. I would be so curious to hear from other participants in the chat if you've also had one of those moments, maybe even a dream that has set you in a different direction. But thank you. That was a beautiful description of what a mind trap is.
Otherwise, thank you,
Um,
Carrie. This is great. So we have the same experience. This is wonderful.
yeah, it kind of reminds me of the hero's journey almost.
Yep.
And so you sort of described the mind traps, they're coming from within. And now start to talk us through what does it mean to free yourself from the mind trap? So you've recognized I have this work to do. It's going to be hard. What's next?
Okay, what next? So now that you identify where you are trapped, now the first step is you have to track the source. Where is it coming from? It's always coming from somewhere. So from my experience, we can divide in two families, well, three, but let's talk about two. So trauma that, it can comes from trauma that are not overcome. And then we'll go back to that. And or from voices, external voices, authority. So teacher, parents, religious, and also the community, the social voices. But let me share an example. I had years ago, they were a CEO, but they were a senior executive who was concerned. It was not concerned. It was sorry, I'm looking for the word. He was considered to be the next CEO of his company, and he was obviously smart, successful. Everything went good. And then in order to do that, he had to face and be in front of a panel of other leaders who were responsible to of that process. So, okay, he did it. And out of the blue, during this process, he changed completely his behavior. Completely. He became someone else. He talked a lot. He didn't listen. It was very bizarre. And of course, he didn't have the job. He didn't get the job because, it was not what, people was expected from him. And he came back, he came to me and he told me, I absolutely don't know, Hortense, what happened. I don't know. I said, okay, let's figure out. And then revisiting his life, he remembered the time. So he was very young. He was a student. At that time, he had to pass an exam. So he also had, to be in front of a panel of teachers. And then one of the teachers didn't listen to him. He just, didn't listen to him and cut him all the time. He couldn't speak. So he was completely shocked. He didn't understand. He said, what's going on? I'm here, to present, the subject, and you don't let me speak. Then he was shocked. So of course he lost his school. And then the same teacher told him, young guy, I don't know what you're going to do in life, but I can promise you something. You will never be a CEO because we can see all the emotions on your face. And then you can imagine, Carrie, this young man came back home with a trauma, because it's a trauma. We'll go back to that. It's a trauma. And with, this prediction that you will never be a CEO. And by the way, if you want to be a CEO, you don't have to show your emotion. So it was wrong, wrong, and wrong. But he was not aware of it. So he passes the exam at the end of the day. It was okay. Everything was okay. And he forgot. But his unconscious didn't. Because if we go back to trauma, what is a trauma? What is the definition of a trauma? It's an event or series of events would trigger a very high emotion and trigger your sense of safety. And it was the case, right? Coming from nowhere, it was shocked. And then everything, stayed in his unconscious until the time he had to face it. And it was the first time he was considered to be a CEO. So it was the first time that unconscious, rang a bell and said, tung, 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 tung. And then what happened was the unconsciously, he said, oh, it's not going to happen again. I'm going to talk all the time and I'm not going to let you interrupt me. Okay, yes, but wrong. And then he understood also that, the voice of his teacher, so voice, here are two, trauma and voices. And the voice of the teacher was still there, like a prediction. And then when he understood that, so now here we go. We can begin the process of unlocking ourselves. So let's challenge, those voices or those beliefs or this trauma. Then, okay, with 3 questions, I ask him, is it true? So that you cannot be a CEO or you cannot show your emotion. Is it true? Is it true? Is it relevant? Is it helpful today? Let me repeat. Is it true? Is it relevant? Is it helpful today? And then if the answer is no, no, and no, in that case, it was no, no, and no, just let go. So then you need to work on letting go. This is not that easy. It's another process. You have ready to let go. And when we are talking about let go, it's really let go with peace. It's not time to it's not time to be angry. It's not time to to be angry or whatever, have bad emotions. It's just time to be in peace. And then when you are in this state of mind, when you're here, then you can begin to write your own story. So that, the second part, I call this part a mind shift. So you change, you change your mindset. And then here we are. I recommend you to do it, and everyone who is listening. So I don't know if you follow me or I go too fast, but think about it. Think about it. Where are you track? Do you feel sad? Do you feel unhappy? Do you feel not yourself, or maybe angry? Yeah. So it's because you are stuck somewhere. So where are you stuck?
I'll just jump in and note that people are definitely tracking with what you're saying. People in the chat are giving thumbs up and star eyes and various other emojis back. They're really liking the concepts of mind trap and mind shift that you're going through. I think it would be helpful to maybe have another example from the book or otherwise. If you have one, that the one you just gave was very powerful because it was both a trauma and a voice, the voice of the past teacher. Do you have any other examples that are maybe other external voices that are maybe a little bit more proximate in time, current, or any example that you think is a good one?
Mm. So I have another example of it's a same. No, it was a CEO. So CEO of a Fortune 500 company, very successful, and at one point he had to he and his company decided to do an investment.
Mm.
And 2 or 3 years later, okay, the investment was okay, but was not that great. But it was not a big deal. But sometimes it's like that. You have to try things. It works well, and sometimes it works less. But I felt that he felt guilty. I said, okay, what's going on here? Why are you guilty? And then, same tracking, where it can come from, and what's, he understood at one point that he was guilty. He had to come back to his mother. And his mother said, you have to be perfect, because they were immigrant, and, they wanted, her mother wanted absolutely to fit, in the society and things like that. So she raised beautifully her children, and she said, okay, you have to be perfect. Perfection is never good enough, and you have to be perfect. Okay, it was helpful, of course, at the beginning, because when you are young, it's good to, okay, let's go, let's do more, and things like that. But at one point, when you become a leader, you are not a doer anymore, and you understand that perfection doesn't exist, right? It's not part of humanity anyway. So he was still feeling, he was still there. I had to be perfect. I know, everything that is not perfect, I feel guilty, because, it's not possible. Something is bad is going to happen. His unconscious was still there. And then going back then, just realize that, and just realize that he was not 5 anymore, 10 anymore. He didn't need that. So with a lot of love, of course, he let go. He said, thank you, ma'am. It helped me a lot. It doesn't help me anymore. But thank you. I love you. And okay. And he moved. He moved. And I think, this is a beautiful example, because all of us, we have parents, and so they do their best. But, I like also I like to compare this moment with, when we are little, we are kids, in order to we learn how to ride bicycle, right? So we have our training wheels, right? We need them, because without them, so we're going to fall. And at one point, we need to take off. We don't need anymore those training wheels. So it's same here. At one point, if you keep your training wheels, you're not going to go far, because it's hold you back, and you cannot go fast. And no, it was just helpful to help you, to launch you. And then now you're good. You're good. You can go, and you can create, your own story, and you can be yourself, and it's okay.
So much of the work here is about making what's unconscious conscious. And then kind of pulling yourself out of that state of reaction to actually being able to respond to those 3 great questions. We're going to write those down on sticky note later. and then be able to make more informed decisions about where to go. And I think what you're also describing is being able to be compassionate towards yourself, kind of understanding what's happened. I know that one of your principles is empathy. So in addition to giving yourself empathy, you also learn how to give other people empathy.
Yeah, because, okay, so I gave the definition. I'm not going to repeat it, except if you think it's helpful, but let's repeat, because it's a concept that is not that easy. So what is empathy? Empathy, it's the ability to put yourself in other shoes. What that means? That means that, for example, today, I try to, understand who is Carrie. I can to see that. Same with Tom, and same I cannot do with all of you that unfortunately that are listening, because I cannot see you, and it's too many people. But this is empathy. So I can put myself in your shoes, and then I can understand you better because I can feel with you. I go in your world. So this is empathy. The secret now is, okay, now that I'm with you, okay, let's take an example here. Okay, you have a friend who is very, very sad, lost, for example, somebody. So what you do? What are you going to do? You're going to go to see your friend, right? You're not going to fix it. You're just going to feel that your friend is very sad. Of course, he's very sad. So you're going to feel this sadness. But if you stay there, if you don't realize at one point that your friend is sad, but it didn't happen to you, and you are not going to be able to help your friend if you stay stuck in this sadness, because now you are two sad people. But if you want to help your friend, what you have to do is, I felt your sadness. Now I understand. I go back to myself. I understand that it didn't happen to me, and I'm going to help you. But you're going to find the right words to do that, because you felt, you care. Right? So this is empathy. And empathy starts with yourself. You cannot do anything if you don't start with yourself. If you don't start this process of understanding yourself, unlocking yourself, and as my grandmother said, listen to your inner voice. Who are you? Who are you? So maybe you think, oh, I know who I am. Do you really know who you are? Very deep. So starting the process with yourself, starting the process of, stop, reflect, and think about, okay, what drives me? How I want to show up? Who am I? What is important for me? What legacy I want to give, to let after me? All this process of, okay. And then you learn how to listen to really who you are. But now I go to the mind shift a bit, because this is a little, this is that. But empathy starts with yourself. So when you are here and you know very well what drives you, your vision is clear. You know what you want to do, and sometimes you don't know how. That's fine, no problem. What you need to have is like the captain of the boat, your vision. So you have a vision, you feel yourself, but it's I didn't say that, but it's a journey. It's not a destination. So it's really a start, right? So here we start the great and the exciting, journey and of discovering ourselves and our potential. So empathy start there, and then when you are sure you are connected with your inner voice, with who you already are, okay, now you're ready to create a culture of empathy in your environment. So if you are a CEO in your firm, but everywhere in your environment, And then you practice empathy with others.
Mm.
You listen more. Create this environment of trust we were talking about at the beginning. And try to understand others, to feel others. And authorize them, because if you do that, if you are clear and you are really this human leader or this empathetic leader, you give the tone. Everyone is looking at you. Everyone is watching you. So if you give this tone, you give others permission to do the same. Okay, she does that, he does. Okay, we can do it. Let's do it. And then you create this culture of empathy, like, we said before, Satya Nadella did that so beautifully, in a beautiful way. It was magic and beautiful to see this, culture of empathy. We talk, we connect, we are all together, we ask questions, we try to understand, and then the magic happen. The magic happen. Yeah.
Yes, what I'm hearing is a lot of empathy is being able to listen and like truly actively listen to others. And to elaborate on the leadership example, it's, the leader enters the room and instead of launching into the meeting by saying the smartest thing they can think of, the most inspiring thing, they actually pause and open the space to others to really listen, hear where people are at, and then lend empathy to them, so that everyone feels that they are included in that culture before moving forward.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's not time to show up. No. The best leaders are humble and they listen.
One of the key things I just heard there and everything you just shared on the empathy track too was just the power of great modeling. Leaders model all the great leaders model all the important leadership behaviors, but having empathy would be one that I think if a leader like Satya or like others model that one in particular, it sort of gives permission to the other superhero leaders in the room, even peers of them, maybe not, since the CEO wouldn't have a peer, but let's say it's someone that's in the C-suite and they do have peers. It would allow not only their subordinate leaders, directors, VPs below them, but their peer leaders to also make that shift from being a superhero leader to the more human leader.
Exactly. It's really, from the bottom to the top of us, of the top from the top to the bottom, sorry. But really until the frontliner, you create, this is why I say that we create this culture. The culture is not created by, well, we cannot talk about culture if only, I don't know, 10 people in the room or 10 people in the company are doing that. We talk about culture, the person who is going to apply for the job needs to feel it. Just feel it. And then you can say that, okay, you created a culture of whatever you decide, but we are talking about empathy. So a culture of empathy. You can feel it, you can see it. And even when you go outside, you talk about, the peers. I love that. This is true, Tom, because it's, somebody like Sadia is also a role model for other CEOs because they are all peers and they talk all together and they watch, okay, what works, what doesn't work. And of course, I think we can say that easily say that most of them, they know that they are not stupid, right? They absolutely know that they need to become this human leader. And someone had to start. That's why it's so wonderful to have those examples and, and we can talk about those people because every one of us, we said, oh, okay, he did it, so I can do it. Or she did it, so I can do it. Same, you give permission to others. And also, even if you're not CEO, you can very often, have people say, oh, reading your book or listening to you, I realize that also somebody like Satya Nadella or whatever I'm talking about in the book, or examples that I say, or even you, okay, it happened to you too. Okay, so it's all right. I'm not alone. And this is good. This is why we speak up. This is why I share my story. This is why I wrote the book. It's because just to make people understand that you're not alone. All of us, we are exactly the same. And some of us, we had this experience. So we want to give you the experience and to tell you, okay, you can do it too, because we did it and you can do it too. And then, yes, you're absolutely right, Thomas.
So I'm curious, what advice would you give to somebody who is in an organization who, say, does not have a leader like Satya or somebody that's very empathetic? So they don't have those models around them. How can they still show up empathetically in that type of culture?
So if you feel, whenever you are, whatever you're doing, if you feel that you want to do that, you feel like, okay, I'm not happy, anytime you can go to this process of unlocking yourself. Anytime you can go to this process of finding yourself. And then you do it. And you create your own environment. It's not because your leader are not like that. Yourself, at least you are a leader of your life. So at least you have one one follower, but I'm sure you have more than one, because you work with others. The way you show up, nobody can tell you. Give yourself the permission to do it, and you will see. You do with your team, for example, or if you don't have a team, with the people with who you work, your customer or whatever around you, and start there. And it's never too soon to start. And then you will see, you will create your own environment of empathy. And then all over you're going to touch all the people around you. Also your personal life also, because it's not like we are cut in two, so we are the same person. And then it's going to change a lot of things. The first thing to change is yourself. And you will see how beautiful it is, to begin this journey. So, no, you can do it.
Yeah, I'd say too that you said you can create a small environment around you. Maybe a good analogy would be sort of a bubble within an otherwise unhealthy culture. That bubble could grow. It could be contagious in a positive way and spread to other parts of the organization. And you never know. Perhaps there's a limit. One of the strong principles of our work on culture renovation, both the original study and then our CEO, Kevin Oakes's book, getting the CEO on board with the culture renovation is critical. If you can't do that, it does put to some degree, at least in the short and medium term, a cap on, what the impact you can have. But you could create a bubble within that environment. It could be contagious and grow, and you never know. That CEO, when faced with a growing culture that is different than the one that he or she wants to promote, they may leave, and the new CEO could come in at any time and have a totally different viewpoint, and then you're in a much stronger place because you've already planted the seeds of the empathetic, the trusting, the whatever culture you've wanted to have.
Yeah, 100%. And I thought that you're going to say that maybe the CEO is going to understand that there is maybe another way and learn. So that also is possible, and everything is possible. And also, maybe you will leave at one point because you will find another company. But whatever it is, the answer is do it where you are. Okay, start, the process of unlocking yourself where you are, and don't be afraid. Things are going to move for sure. And yeah, so we didn't talk a lot about, the mind build, but this is what we are talking about. It's now that you free yourself, when you are free after, letting go, it's really now you are the author of your life. You can write your own story. And then we talk about, okay, what drives you? Go to do some exercise. I can give you another exercise if you want. It's okay. So it's easy. This one is easy. You have other in the book, but this one is quite easy. If you decide and you're here and you're ready to write your own story, you can start there and think about 3 columns. So take 3 columns, very easy. The column number 1, you write what is good in your life and what you want to keep. And when I'm talking about life, you can do either, okay, your business life, professional life, and personal life, or you can, same column, you can put, everything. Let's do how you feel. You do it the way you feel, but you can do it with everything. So what's first column? What do you keep? I love that. I want that in my life. I need that. I keep it. The second column is what you drop, what you don't want anymore. So from my experience, that drains me. That is not good for me. That I don't want anymore. Whatever it is. Up, you write, everything in your second column. And then you have your column number 3. What do you want to add that you don't have today? What do you need? What do you need that you don't have today? And then up, you write down that. And then it becomes your compass. It's a good start. And now you have a better picture of, okay, what is what I want now. So, okay, what I want, what I don't want. And after you become to, you start your drivers, you start to write your own story, what drives you and things like that. So I'm not going to go to all the exercise that you can do, but let's imagine that you hear now the secret here, the secret sauce. I'm going to give you the secret sauce. The secret sauce is you have to work on it every day.
Right.
Because of course we are so used to do another way. It's exactly like, when you have another, if you cut whatever, you broke your arm, whatever, you have to work on it every day a little, right? And more and more. If you don't do it, it's not going to work anymore. And then same here. Every day you need to have your own, what I call your own rendezvous with yourself. So we have a lot of rendezvous and meetings in a day.
Mm-hmm.
And why don't you have time to have a rendezvous for yourself?
Brilliant.
And think about, okay, how am I today? How did I do today? Okay, so I was thinking about my 3 columns, where I am. What is the first step that I took today to become, the person I want to become? And then every day you reflect. And it's not a question of perfection. If you didn't think about it, if you didn't do anything about it, it's all right. Then the question is only, did I do my best? Okay. And then, okay, I did my best. Oh no, I forgot. It's fine. But the fact that you think about it, you're going to say, okay, tomorrow I will do better. And you revisit your life and you revisit your day and you revisit your week, sometimes. And this is how you're going to be sure that you're going to move forward.
So many nuggets of wisdom in what you just said, and I agree, Tom, with what you put in the chat. I was thinking about the parallel to the start, stop, continue framework that we often use from a business sense, but you can ask yourself those same questions. And just the process of daily, regular self-reflection gets you to that place of inner knowing, even if it don't have all the answers, even if you're not making changes today, you're moving towards being able to act with greater understanding of what's happening.
Yeah.
I'll just jump in too. I was a big fan 20 years ago when David Allen came out with his book, Getting Things Done, and he had an elaborate process for improving time management and efficiency and everything. And he promoted this idea of a weekly review of your projects, of the things that matter to you. And I think what you're saying, Hortense, you add this into that sort of weekly review. Yes, it's great to reflect on it daily, maybe before you go to bed at night or first thing in the morning. But if you can even just do it weekly, that would be better than not at all. And build it into your sort of review of what you accomplished this week, what you're looking to do next week, but also have this sort of, whether you call it start, stop, continue, or in your language. What do you want to keep? What do you want to drop? What do you want to add? Do that even just once a week would be a great place to start, because we're all busy, so doing it every day might be a lot to ask. But if you can, that's great.
Okay, so let me just disagree here.
Okay, please do.
Because I think there is no excuse. Busy, you are very busy. Okay, so it's time to stop. It's
Fair
time
enough.
to,
Yeah,
because
slow down.
we are talking about 5 minutes, 10 minutes. You don't have 5 minutes or 10 minutes, to take care of yourself. Remember, in the plane, in time of turbulence, we are asked, to put our mask first, to take care of ourselves before taking care of others. If you don't have 10 minutes or 5 minutes just to think about, that,
That's a good point.
I
I'll build it in.
think there is a problem somewhere.
I'll build it into before brushing teeth and flossing. How about that?
Whenever you want.
I
Whenever you
love
want.
about this is there's so many frameworks out there to do this, and I've tried a bunch: the daily questions, journaling at the end of the day, highlighting the energizers, the detractors. But I think what you're saying, Hortense, is the important part is that however you do it, you just do it.
Yeah,
And if
we
you
just
need to find, yeah.
No, good. Yeah, correct. Sorry.
Yeah, and you can find someone to help keep you accountable. Maybe it's the conversation you have with your spouse at the end of the day, but no matter what, you take a little bit of that time to reflect.
Yeah, and after it begins, it's like when you exercise, it begins. You understand why we need to do that, but really, and you find your way. Well, for me, for example, every morning I do yoga and meditation, whatever what happened in the world. So I have 10 minutes, I have 5 minutes, I have even 5 seconds, if I need. But I have a 1 hour, process. So depending of if I have a lot of time, not at all, if I have to wake up at 5 or whatever, what I have to do. If I don't do it, I'm so used to do it. And if I don't do it, and in my meditation, I see my day, I say, okay, and then. So this is my way. You don't have to do that. You find your way. I have a client is doing his he's listening to a music. So, in the intro, we had a wonderful music, right? With a vibration. Vibration. It was a vibration.
Yeah, good vibrations.
Yeah, good vibration. Yes, thank you. And then whatever it is, listen to a music that talks to you. So whatever is the mood, if you need energy, you listen to this one. If you need, calm, you need this one, whatever it is. So I have one client every day for 10 minutes is putting, his earphone, listening to his best music, and he allows himself to have a cup of coffee, and he watch at the window outside, just and try to not think. Takes 5 minutes, 6 minutes. You don't have 6 minutes to take care of yourself. Think about it.
I have a feeling, Tom, just from knowing you, that you actually do have these moments worked into your day.
Yeah, no, I do. And I appreciate the pushback on my trying to give people an easy out of not doing it every day. But I agree. I do take those reflective moments for
I'm
sure.
sure you do. I'm sure you do. That's why, I gave myself permission to.
Oh, no, absolutely.
I know we're getting close to the top of the hour. I'm curious, what kind of reactions have you received for the book so far?
So, as we said before, that the book is very timely, because the world changed, as we said, and you never know, when you write a book, it's exactly like when you have a children. So you have a book, and then the book is out, and it doesn't, and the book it doesn't belong to you anymore. So I'm always very, very happy when people tell me that it was helpful and it was just the right time to read, because again, a lot have been written about the why, but when it comes to the how, it's not that easy. So having a guide it helps. So I'm very happy because this is the reason why I wrote the book, right? So yeah, I'm very fortunate to listen to very nice feedback.
Well, on the book front, we've put the link to it on Amazon a couple of times in the chat. A few people have said that they've already gone ahead and ordered it. As a reminder, those of you that will be coming to our next Practices Now conference, which is noted there at the bottom left of this slide, you'll all get a copy of the book then. But I know some of you are eager to start reading it, maybe ahead of Hortense's presentation at the conference. So go ahead and order now and get a second copy at the conference, and you'll be able to give it out to someone that you know needs it and would benefit from it.
Thank you, Tom.
Well, we're sort of at time here. I think we'll go ahead and wrap at this point. Carrie, I want to thank you. Great job facilitating this conversation today.
Thank you. And thank you, Hortense. I learned so much. You definitely revalidated a lot of things I know, but I needed to hear again. I can't wait to meet you in person soon.
Oh, me too. Thank you for having me, both of you. It was just such a pleasure to have this conversation with you. And thank you for everyone who was here in the call to listen to me.
Yeah, I'll second that. Thank you. It was a fascinating conversation. Just a couple things to wrap up. All of these Next Practice Weekly sessions are available for recertification credit hours with both HRCI and SHRM. So if you have a cert with either of those bodies, just jot down the relevant program ID or activity ID. We've also put them over in the chat for you. And again, if you haven't registered for the Next Practices Now conference, it's a unique event. Every year in March, we meet. There's no vendors. There's no expo or trade show. It's just for HR leaders to peer connect with each other, network, and hear from a plethora of great speakers. You see Hortense there in the bottom left. We've been highlighting a few of the other speakers. We had Diane Gerson, former CHRO at IBM, last week as a guest here on Next Practices Weekly. We've got Ian Wilson from AWS coming up next week. So it's going to be a great event coming up at the end of March in Scottsdale. So hope to see you there. So with that, thanks once again. Thank you, Zeta. Thank you, Carrie. And thank you, Hortense. Great conversation, and hope everyone has a great rest of their week.